A question that often arises in the context of disability laws at workplace is whether depression is a qualifying disability under California Fair Employment and Housing Act, which would entitle the employee who suffers from that condition to all the rights and privileges that other disabled workers are entitled to in California. The answer to that question really depends on the specific circumstances of each situation. For example, if you feel depressed and you go to your boss and you say that you're depressed and nothing else, and then a couple of days or a couple of weeks later you're terminated, whether you're terminated because of saying to your boss that you were depressed or for some other reason, making a claim for disability discrimination and wrongful termination, in that case will be an uphill battle to say the least, or it will be virtually impossible. And that's because just telling your employer that you're depressed is not enough to put your employer on notice that you have a disability. And the employer who doesn't know and who has no reason to know that you have a disability cannot be held liable for disability discrimination and wrongful termination due to your disability. On the other hand, if you feel that you're seriously depressed and then you go to your doctor and you're being formally diagnosed with depression, you're being prescribed certain medication and you're being given a note by your doctor to be off work for a couple of weeks or maybe for a couple of months. You take that note, you bring it to your manager, to your employer. And then upon return to work, maybe you're released to full duties or maybe you're released with restrictions. And the common restriction when it comes to depression is working reduced hours for a few months after you return to work. In that case, if your employer terminates you for some bogus reason that doesn't make sense, there is a chance that you'll be able to make disability discrimination case, because in that case the employer was on clear notice that you have a disability and the reason that you were out was because of your disability. Your claim will be particularly strong if you've been working for that employer for many years, for 10 or more years, you had good performance, and then you were terminated during or shortly after being diagnosed with disability and going on medical leave. The common mistake that a lot of employees who are diagnosed with depression make is going to the doctor, being diagnosed with depression, getting that medical note, and yet not sharing that with their employer because of their confidentiality concerns. In many, if not most cases, this concern about confidentiality, not sharing with your employer information, the most basic information about your disability, will hurt you more than benefit you. Because think about it. Again, if your employer doesn't know that you have a disability, they don't have to accommodate you. And if they don't know that you have a disability, then they cannot be held liable for disability discrimination later if they terminate you for some bogus reason. Your employer is entitled to know the basic facts about your condition, what your limitations are and why you have these limitations. There's nothing really to be embarrassed when it comes to depression, so you should not really hesitate to share that basic information that is contained in your medical note about your depression. Many people out there suffer from depression. Many people go on medical leave in connection with anxiety, stress, and depression. Many people take medication. It's nothing new, and it's nothing new to your boss, most likely. If your boss shares that information with your coworkers, that's a different story, but I would hope that most bosses know how important it is to keep that information confidential within your personnel file. So, if you're diagnosed with depression, if you need an accommodation to your condition, such as medical leave or any other kind of accommodation, share that information with your boss, with your manager, and work together to figure out a solution to your illness, to your condition, and how you can be accommodated in order to allow you to continue working for that employer. Thank you.